The Drive coming to you here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, proudly presented by the fantastic team at Great Lakes Honda City. It is my honor and my privilege to be here with you for the unveiling of our 2024-25 NCAA Men's Division I Tournament bracket. Ross has his. I have my little baby right here. I'll show it to you like this. So very excited about unveiling our bracket here today and looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have. We are going to start with the bracket that takes us to the number one overall seed in the South, is where we will start things with Auburn, and then we'll go to the East with the number two, with the second number ones. It's so confusing to say to people that don't know. It's like, well, they're a one seed, right? But they're a one seed, correct? But they're a 1-1 seed and they're a 2-1 seed, yes. And then people are like, you've lost me, I'm out. So Duke is the second 1 seed. We'll go to the East after this. Then we'll go to Houston's bracket in the Midwest, who is the third 1 seed. And I could just hear that in my head. Just, having that conversation with somebody that doesn't watch college basketball. And the fourth 1 seed we will get to is going to take us to the West and to Florida, which makes no sense. And it shouldn't, because Florida's not out West. So, and Florida and California, they agree on almost nothing. So, with that being said, as we are here for this bracket, we are unveiling our bracket, and I say we, with my better half here, sports broadcaster and writer, and that is Mr. Ross Turetsky. And as we unveil this beautiful bracket here this morning, I do not know Ross's picks. He does not know mine. And I am more than excited to reveal that. I'm going to defer to Ross and let him go first through this. But before I do that, I'm going to say hello. So how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on. What is this now? 14, 15 years we've been doing this. So I enjoy doing the drive with you, breaking down our brackets. It's a fun tradition this time of year. Schedule's kind of hectic right now, just between coaching baseball and the kids and the family. But I wanted to make sure we got a chance to do this. And yeah, I sent you my bracket about 2 days ago, and you're like, "Oh, I haven't even looked at it. I want to make sure that everything is above board." And unlike the people who do like 12 different kinds of brackets to up their chances of getting them more right because they don't want their bracket to be busted after day 1 or 2 of the tournament, I don't like that. I do one bracket. I do it the first time the bracket comes out, usually the night of. I print out the bracket, fill it out, first inclinations, first gut reactions, and I go with it, and I stick with it for better or for worse, whether it gets busted or not. As we said off air, my favorite days of the tour are these first 2 days, Thursday and Friday, because you got basketball from 12 noon all the way past midnight for those West Coast games, all day basketball, no stop in the action. My wife is like, please no, just like she says with the baseball season. Oh, the horror, how's there more baseball games? By the way, a week from today is opening day for all the Major League Baseball teams. I got my Yankee hat on. And we had 2 opening day games in Japan with the Dodgers beating the Cubs with Shohei Ohtani and a home run the other day. So we have baseball. It counts for real. And next Thursday, it'll count for everyone. But we're here for basketball. And my wife's like, oh, why are you watching basketball night long? It's fun. It's excited. And we already had some great action in the playing games, the first 4 games. It used to be called the first round, and this was the second round. Now this is back to the first round. Started on Thursday, but we had like buzzer beater action. We had a blowout with North Carolina, who people didn't think deserved to get in. So we've had some fun action already. I think we're going to have a heck of a day of basketball, and this whole weekend is going to be exciting. But I'm hoping for some upsets, and I know a lot of our brackets are going to be up in flames by midnight tonight. But I'm ready for that challenge. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I'm excited to do this. I'm excited to have the drive here. And the drive is brought to you proudly by Great Lakes Honda City, driving you through the entire tournament and the place where you will be driving out from with your new vehicle. They're new and used vehicles. And the next one that's going to be in your driveway is at Great Lakes Honda City on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday for sales and service. You can get to know their inventory by going to greatlakeshondacity.com, and all that information is on wakeupcalldt.com. If you forget anything, just head off to our website on wakeupcalldt.com. So with that being said, it is time to jump right into the bracket and the Wake Up Call Bracket Challenge. You can still join. If you want to join the Wake Up Call Bracket Challenge, you could search us on Yahoo, or you could simply go right here. When it comes to the bracket challenge, we have our own QR code, and you can tap your screen right now for the Wake Up Call QR code to join our bracket. You have until noon today. I want to stress that you have until noon today. Once noon hits, that first game is going off. It will lock you out of the entire bracket. You will not be able to make a single pick. So don't think, oh man, I'll just miss one or two of these games, then I'll make my pick. No, you got to have everything in by noon. Follow that QR code, or you can also do it through searching us, the Wake Up Call group. It's a public group on Yahoo. So make sure you do that. I've shared it a billion times. It's on our story on Instagram at Wake Up Call DT. So make sure that you check that out and join us today. With that being said, I will, like I said, defer to Ross. And as I'm deferring to Ross here with this bracket, I am more than happy to bring that to you right now with the South. Like I said, we're going to start in the South. And so Ross's picks are going to be coming up here. And he's going to bring us through his bracket in the South, and he's going to tell us who is going to make it out of the round of 64. So, Ross, when you're ready, I'll be circling them on my end here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, all around the country and the world on YouTube, Facebook, and Podbean.
All right. Well, to start off, as you said, the number one overall seed, Auburn Tigers. They're a juggernaut, and I think they're going to go pretty deep in this tournament. They get to take on the 16th seed Alabama State, who had that amazing upset buzzer beater in that playing game against St. Francis. That was a thrilling game. I think this is one of the few HBCU schools that have now won a game in the tournament, and so they had a thrilling start to their March Madness. So that was exciting. Right at the buzzer, right with like a half-court pass, and then just right when it went off, it went in. So it was a thrilling game for them. But now back to reality. They have to take on Auburn, a tough team here. Auburn is just too talented, too much firepower. And I know we just came on like a 7-year anniversary, I think the other day, from the first number one seed ever to lose to a 16 seed. Famously, Virginia and Tony Bennett, not the singer, the coach who used to coach Virginia, retired and then won a national title and redeemed himself. And it's happened, I think, one other time since. But we thought it was unthinkable at the time. As you know, 16 seed now can beat a 1 seed. It's still very rare. I don't see it happening here. I think they'll make it interesting for a little while. Auburn's going to crush them. So I have Auburn advancing in their matchup. Then I have in the 8 versus 9 matchup. That's always a close one. Louisville versus Creighton. Just think Creighton's a little bit better of a team. They made a nice little run in the Big East tournament. I have more faith in Creighton. They usually go on nice runs in the NCAA tournament. So I'm going to go with Creighton in a close game, probably 2 or 3 points over Louisville. Then in the 5-12 matchup, you got to watch out. 12 seeds a lot of times knock off 5 seeds. That happens a lot. That's usually the one that you circle. I just can't do it here because the Michigan Wolverines are red hot. They went right through their Big Ten conference tournament last week. They had a thrilling run, and I think they're now poised as a physical, hot team right now to make a run in this tournament. So I have Michigan go pretty deep in this tournament. So if they lose to a 12 seed, I'm kind of screwed right now if they lose that. So that could happen. But I'm going to go with Michigan beating UC San Diego pretty handedly. So I'll have Michigan advance into the second round. And then in the 4 versus 13 matchup, Texas A&M Aggies versus Yale. I'm actually going with Yale in a pretty big upset. Yale, I think did this about a year ago, where the Ivy League wasn't all. You're going to be able to crush the Ivy League, anyone from a major conference. It happens, but I think Yale is poised. They know what to do. They know how to play in this tournament. Single elimination like that. And usually they can shoot the heck out of the ball. They do a lot of pressure defense. And I just think Yale is poised for a nice upset victory, just like they did just a year ago. And I'll go with the Yale Bulldogs, knocking off Texas A&M Aggies, a 13 over a 4 seed. So I know that's a pretty big one, pretty big leap of faith. But I'm going to go with Yale over Texas A&M. And then in the 6 versus 11 matchup, let's see what we have here. Oh, yeah, we're going to have Ole Miss versus North Carolina, who, of course, as we said, crushed San Diego State. As again, they probably didn't necessarily deserve to make the tour at North Carolina. It probably helps that they had one of their guys from the school on the committee to get in. You know, they said that there was no conflict of interest. Hard to believe. Maybe a wink there. But North Carolina Tar Heels crushed San Diego State the other day, so they made up for it with a resounding victory. And I think North Carolina, once they're in this tournament now, they're a little bit dangerous. And they have a chip on their shoulder. With a lot of people saying they don't deserve to be here. And of course, coming out of the ACC, they've lost to Duke a couple of times this year, but North Carolina is a dangerous team, a lot of talent, and I'm actually going to go with North Carolina to knock off Ole Miss 11 over a 6 seed to advance to round number 2. Let's see what else we have.
The next one up is going to be for after you go for this game. It is going to be Iowa State and Lipscomb.
Yeah, that's what we have here. I was just looking at that. Yeah, 3 versus 14. I can't even read my own handwriting here. It's like doctor's handwriting. I'm getting old. I need the bifocals. Yeah, so 3C Iowa State, the Cyclones. I have them advancing, beating up Lipscomb. If to be 100% honest, sometimes this happens. I don't know where the heck Lipscomb is. I don't know what it is. I remember we joked a couple of times in the past about Grand Canyon and other schools who are actually pretty dangerous and sometimes can pull off upsets. But I expect Iowa State to win easily in this one to advance to round number 2 to take on North Carolina Tar Heels. And then I have Marquette, the 7th seed, over 10 seed New Mexico. Marquette, another team like Creighton, coming out of the Big East, dangerous team. They makes runs in their conference tournament and makes runs in this March Madness NCAA tournament. So Marquette, when the clock and the calendar turns to March, they're just dangerous. They know how to play, and you can't take them for granted. Marquette usually goes on a run and busts a bunch of brackets. I'm going to go with Marquette to beat on New Mexico to advance to round 2. And then my final pick in the South region, Tom Izzo. It seems like he's here year after year. Good, bad teams, mediocre teams. He gets to the Final Four a lot of times, even with just mediocre talent level. They play above and beyond that level. As again, once the clock turns to March, that calendar turns to March, aggressive defense, good rebounding, and they just find a way to do it. Tom Izzo, we trust. Tom Izzo and his Michigan State Spartans made a nice run in their Big Ten Conference tournament. I think they got knocked off by their rival Michigan Wolverines. But Michigan State here, a 2 seed, I think is going to crush Bryant, I think, pretty handily. So it will set up a good round 2 matchup with Michigan State versus Marquette. But again, the Spartans and Tom Izzo, this is their season at Michigan State year after year. It's not a coincidence that they always make a run. Gonzaga always makes a run. These coaches, whatever talent they have, the one and done, they find a way to always play their best come March in this tournament, one and done situation.
Yeah, and as we go through this bracket, starting in the South, we're going to bring you through our entire bracket unveiling of our picks. And Ross and I in the drive, proudly presented by Great Lakes Honda City inside the Great Lakes Honda City studios on Wake Up Call. I will now ask Ross to go to the round of 32 and to tell us the Sweet 16 that will come out of the South, and then I will jump into the South myself. So you have Auburn and Creighton. So you got to figure out who's coming out of Auburn and Creighton. And then we have Michigan and Yale. So we got to figure out who's coming out of there. And then you also have North Carolina and Iowa State. So we'll go North Carolina, Iowa State, and the winner of Marquette and Michigan State.
All right, so round number 2, Auburn, and again, I think they just have way too much firepower here. I think they're number 1 seed for a reason, the number 1 overall seed for a reason. They've been good all year long. They take on Creighton, who's a Cinderella story, but year after year they always find a way to make a run. I think Creighton, though, their glass slipper is going to shatter here. I think Auburn, too much firepower. Creighton keeps it close for a while, but then they pull away and win by about 10 points. Auburn over Creighton to go to the Sweet 16. Then in my other round 2 matchup, I have the Michigan Wolverines against Ivy League powerhouse, the Yale Bulldogs. I'm going to go with Michigan here. As much as I'd love to have the intestinal fortitude, the guts, to pick Yale to make even a bigger run to go to the Sweet 16 or maybe the Elite 8 or Final 4. I can't drink the Kool-Aid that much. I have them enough on the line by beating Texas A&M, a 4 seed in round 1. I think Yale is going to give Michigan a lot to handle, more than they can handle and throughout this game. But I think in the end, Michigan, too much talent, and coming out of the Big Ten Conference, they've played better competition, so they're ready for this moment, and they're red hot. And I don't see their run ended this early. So I think Michigan over Yale. North Carolina against Iowa State, another round 2 matchup. I don't know if I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid or the name brand of North Carolina. I'm going to the North Carolina Tar Heels. Again, a lot of people are like, oh, they don't deserve to be in it. Again, once they're in, they're dangerous.
Yeah.
If they weren't in it, and then they could have easily made a lot of reasons why they don't deserve to be for it. Whether they deserved or not to, they're in it. They showed a lot of anger to really destroy their opponent in their first 4 game the other night. I think they're going to continue that anger and that chip on the shoulder, which is probably the best thing for this Tar Heels program. because if they came in as a red hot team or a juggernaut, I think a lot of times they would overlook an opponent. Here, they are going to be ready to prove everyone wrong, all their doubters wrong, and I think they continue that. And I think North Carolina beats Ole Miss and then beats Iowa State to advance to the Sweet 16. My other matchup here on the bottom of the South bracket, Michigan State versus Marquette. Again, similar to Creighton versus Michigan. Big time Big Ten powerhouse, red hot team against a solid Big East team that always makes a run. But in the end, I think Michigan State too hot to handle for Marquette. And Tom Izzo's Michigan State team is trending upward, and this is the right time to pick the Spartans of Michigan State. In the end, I got to go with Izzo. The coach year after year, he gets it done. And it's not just a fluke or a mystery of why he's able to. He has his team ready to play for this single elimination tournament. And again, they're just too much for Marquette to handle. Similar to John Michigan, I think will be too much for Creighton to handle.
Yeah, so taking a look at Ross's bracket, coming out of the South into the Sweet 16, Auburn, Michigan, North Carolina, and Michigan State. It's time to reset the bracket here on The Drive, proudly presented by Great Lakes Honda City, as I will give you my bracket coming out of the South to the Sweet 16. So with that being said, and I think Ross is going to be pretty happy because he likes when I take some chances. So I'm going to go with Auburn to come out of that matchup where they will be facing Alabama State, who defeated St. Francis. And just so you know, for the first four, I picked Alabama State over St. Francis, who's in the same conference as Lemoyne, the NEC. I picked Xavier over Texas. I picked Mount St. Mary's over American, and North Carolina over San Diego State. So Auburn winning that game. Louisville, Creighton, I don't like seeing this game because I want both of these teams to be in the Sweet 16. I don't think it's fair that they're playing in the round of 64, but I'm going to go with a hot team and Pat Kelsey, a guy that I talked to when he was at the College of Charleston, asked him about his faith, and he said it's probably the best question he's ever been asked. Well, I'm going to go with Louisville and Auburn. Louisville poised to potentially knock off Auburn, and I'll talk about that in a second. Then we'll go with Michigan over UC San Diego. I know some people like UC San Diego, but I got to go with Michigan in this one. But Ross, you'll be happy with this one. I'm going where you're going as well, and we didn't know this because we didn't look at each other's brackets. I'm going with the Yale Bulldogs, baby, from the Ivy League. Let's make it happen one more time. Yale's done.
You have the courage, buddy. I give you my tip of the cap to you. You have the courage, and I'm really hoping the Yale Bulldogs prove us right and prove the doubters wrong in this tournament.
Yeah, and I'm very, very excited, and I cannot wait to see Yale get their victory. North Carolina is going to face off against Ole Miss, and I am going with the old Tar Heels and Hubert Davis. You say they should be in, you say they shouldn't, but the reality of it all is I agree with Ross. Once North Carolina is in, they're a problem, and they're going to be a problem in the round of 64. They're a dangerous team. And who will face off against North Carolina in the round of 32? Give me that team, baby. We're going with the Lipscomb team to take victory here. And Lipscomb has been on my mind for days. And so I trust that. I trust my gut. Listen, Iowa State.
Do we know where the school is? I don't even want to be disrespectful. I don't even know where the school is.
I will tell you where they are. Lipscomb University is in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay, I like Nashville. That's good to know because I had no idea. I was meaning to look at that up before we came on air. Forgot to. And, I was like, never mind. I never heard of the school. I didn't even know where it was located. So my hats go off to you that you're going to go with them in a big upset. That'd be a huge upset. And I think a lot of brackets are going to go get flushed down the toilet today if that gets correct.
The Lipscomb Bisons. I've been thinking about Lipscomb for a couple days, and I just had a conversation about Nashville last night. So I am going to follow my hope here of Lipscomb and the Bisons to get this victory over Iowa State, a team that gets a higher ranking. And I mean, look at the Iowa States of the world. Teams like that have the opportunity to be in conferences that are protected. Lipscomb does not. You have to win your conference tournament. So shout out to the Lipscomb Bisons and all the work that they've done this season, and much appreciation to that coming out of the A-Sun. And my next one that we're going to have here is Marquette. Shaka Smart. Boom shakalaka, baby. We're going to do it again. Shaka Smart, I met him when he was at VCU. Met him at the airport. It was at LaGuardia Airport when we bumped into each other. And then he went off and went to Texas and now is with Marquette. I've gotten to interview him multiple times. I want to thank the Big East and Marquette and the Golden Eagles for that. I'm going with Shaka Smart to bring some firepower to this and face off in the next round against Michigan State, which is one of my toughest ones to cover. So that brings me into the round of 32, and we have Auburn and Louisville. I'm not going to be surprised if Louisville wins this game. I'm not going to be surprised if this number 8 seed does it. I won't be. But
are you going to pick it?
I'm going to go with Auburn in this one.
Okay.
I just want to let it be known that this is one of my difficult picks of the bracket so far because I do believe that Louisville can be a dangerous team. Michigan and Yale, man, would I love the Bulldogs to go forward, but I'm going to have the Wolverines scratching here and clawing their way to the next round into the Sweet 16. And then that takes me to North Carolina and Lipscomb, which is going to be a really interesting matchup. And the team that wasn't supposed to make it is going to go to the Sweet 16. Give me North Carolina. And then we have Marquette and Michigan State. And I really like Shaka Smart, and I got a lot of respect and appreciation for him. But you don't bet against Tom Izzo. And so Michigan State will make it there. So even though Ross and I got there a different way, we have the same 4 coming out of the South bracket, which is always interesting. And with that being said, as I clear the South bracket, I will take us now to the East bracket and our second number 1 seed, which is the Duke Blue Devils. And with that being said, I defer to Ross to take us through the round of 64 and 32 here in The Drive, proudly presented by Great Lakes Honda City on Wake Up Call inside of the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. What do you got for us, Ross?
Well, for the first game here, got to go with Duke. I don't see a number 16 team be able to knock them off. Big one is Cooper Flagg. How healthy will he be? Is that going to be an issue with the badly sprained? I think it was a badly sprained ankle right before the tournament here. So I don't know if it will matter in round 1. I think they can easily win even without him. But it might matter later in this tournament. And he was such a great freshman. I think he was ACC Freshman of the Year, one of the best players in the college game. We'll see if he goes to the draft one and done, or with the NIL deals. Is it pay for him with a few $1 million endorsements? He can stay in college. So he's going to be interesting to watch what he does this tournament and how healthy he's going to be in this tournament with that ankle injury. But I think Duke easily gets past round 1 here. In the 8-9 matchup, we have Baylor versus Mississippi State. I look at the records here. Mississippi State 21-12, Baylor only 19-14. Baylor in the past has been very good. They won a national title a few years ago. I don't know. In the 8-9 matchup is always close. I guess it's a slight upset, especially with how bad Baylor's record was. Baylor over 500. I'll go with Baylor here. I think Baylor is going to be able to beat Mississippi State just a little bit better. And I'll have Baylor headed off to take on Duke in round number 2. In the next matchup, this is, again, a tough one. 5 versus 12 seed. Always look out for the 12 seeds, knocking off the 5 seeds. Liberty, 28-6. Heck of a season, but you're going up against the Oregon Ducks. Quack, quack, quack. Oregon, they've been getting hot of late, and I think they're getting hot at the right time. So as much as you got to be on alert for a 12 seed over a 5 seed upset special in this tournament, I think Oregon survives. I think Liberty gives them a scare, but I'll go with the Ducks of Oregon to knock them off and get to round 2. I think Oregon will end up taking on Arizona in their second round matchup because I'll go with Arizona, the 4 seed, over Akron. I would love to see Akron pull off the upset, the hometown of LeBron James and company. I'd love to see that happen. I think that would be cool for this tournament. But I think in the end, the Arizona Wildcats are going to be too much for them to handle. And I think it will be Oregon versus Arizona in round 2. In the 6 versus 11 matchup, I do have an upset. I'll go with, they always are right for upsets in this tournament. They always seem to get it done. I'll go with VCU, 28-6 this year, over BYU. I just think VCU, every single time they're in the tournament, they either get a big upset win, come close, give someone a scare, and I think VCU is going to at least win one game in this tournament. They knock off BYU as an 11 seed. I think VCU is going to end up taking on Wisconsin, the Badgers. Badgers, the 3 seed, they made a nice run. I think all the way to the Big Ten championship game where they lost to Michigan this last weekend. I think the 3 seed Wisconsin Badgers will crush Montana and so get to round 2. And then for the bottom of the East bracket, I have the 7 seed St. Mary's out of California. solid season again. I think they're a little bit better than Vanderbilt. I know Vanderbilt comes from a big time conference, but I think in the end, St. Mary's, they usually are pretty dangerous in this tournament. I think they're better than Vanderbilt, and they will knock off the 10 seed Vanderbilt team. And they will take on Alabama in round two. Alabama Crimson Tide. I think they're going to find a way to get it done over Robert Morris. Alabama also has had a heck of a season. Arguably could have been a number one seed, and they're going to be a lot for any team to handle in this tournament. So those are my picks to get to round two.
And that takes us to the round of 32. Who's coming out of it to go to the Sweet 16?
All right, to get to Sweet 16, I have Duke over Baylor. Again, as a big caveat, as long as Cooper Flag is healthy, otherwise else they get taken down a notch, and it could be questionable. But I think Duke is going to be able to beat Baylor pretty easily. They get to the round 16. I'll have Oregon Ducks. That beating Arizona in a close 4 or 5 point game. Oregon Ducks will knock off Arizona to get to round 16 to take on Duke, which should be a heck of a matchup in that one. Then later, on the lower part of the bracket, I have VCU versus Wisconsin. I'd love to go with VCU here. They make a nice run. I have to end their Cinderella story after one win over BYU. Wisconsin's a hot team. And again, just like Michigan State, Michigan, Big Ten Conference basketball is tough. It's physical. It gets you ready to play in a single elimination tournament like this. And the Wisconsin Badgers are getting hot at the right time, making a nice run. And I think Wisconsin beats VCU, but I think VCU keeps that game close. I would not be shocked if that's a single-digit victory for Wisconsin. Almost upset. And then on the last part of the bracket, I'll have Alabama knocking off St. Mary's in California. Alabama, too much firepower, too much talent. And again, Alabama very much could have had a great argument to be a 1 seed, and Alabama's going to show that off in this tournament, and they will knock off St. Mary's to get to round 16 to take on Wisconsin.
The Fly Slamma-Jamma Bama. Moving forward, Duke, Oregon, Wisconsin, and Bama into the Sweet 16 from the East bracket, according to Ross. With that being said, it is time for me to give my picks in the East with the second number 1 seed, and that being the Duke Blue Devils. Cooper Flag may not be in this game, but the hope is that they'll take care of business up against Mount St. Mary's, and I think they will. I'm going to pick Duke to go ahead and win this matchup. Interesting how St. Mary's and Mount St. Mary's are in the same bracket here in the East. So Duke moving forward. And then Baylor or Mississippi State, I feel the same way what Ross does. I like Baylor in this matchup to go ahead and move forward and get themselves a victory here coming out of the Big 12. Next one up, we have Oregon over Liberty. This is a football game to me because they did play each other recently. I'm going to go with the Oregon Ducks. I might break out my Oregon Duck neon shirt that has the feathers inside of the letters for the tournament here. I'm going with the Oregon Ducks to get this victory, although I respect the Liberty Flames. And Arizona and Akron, man. Arizona, I think, is ripe for a loss, but I don't think it's going to happen in this matchup. The only team that Akron can beat is the Syracuse football team. And not Fran Brown's Syracuse football team, but the one with Greg Robinson. May he rest in peace in heaven. That was the worst loss I've ever seen in Syracuse football history, and I don't want them to top it ever again. Next one we have here is BYU and VCU. Man, ever since Shaka Smart, eyes have been on the Rams, at least when it comes to me, and I think VCU is going to get this victory. I actually think they're the better seed in this matchup, even though they don't have the higher seed. And then Wisconsin over Montana. I tell y'all all the time, when I pick Wisconsin, they lose. When I don't pick them, they win. But more often than not, when I don't pick them, they win. So between the two of them, of picking them and losing or not picking them and them winning, they usually make me pay and they'll move forward. So I'm not going to make that mistake. St. Mary's has a bone to pick because St. Mary's was better than Gonzaga this year, but they lost to Gonzaga in the West Coast Conference, the WCC championship game. I don't know why there's any other teams in the WCC because there's only 2 that play for a championship every year. St. Mary's they want to prove something. They want to let you know who they are. And they're going to get this victory over the SEC, and they're going to move forward. St. Mary's, I think, is, and if you don't pick them, hey, do what you got to do. But St. Mary's wants to let you know there's more than one team out of the WCC to watch. And then Alabama, man, I've interviewed Alabama over these last couple of years, and I'm excited to see what the Roll Tide's going to do here, the Crimson Tide moving forward over Robert Morris. Some people want to go for broke on Robert Morris and the Colonials. I will not be doing that. I'm going to have Duke coming out of this one over Baylor. Duke's got a shot of winning the whole thing, and I know they're a favorite. and they got to get healthy. But they got a lot of talent, and they have a former Syracuse player in the nucleus of Syracuse's team, Malik Brown. I said it, you cannot lose Malik Brown, and Syracuse did that. And I said, okay, well, you can't lose Malik and Quadir Copeland, who's in the tournament, McNeese State, and they lost him too. What is the difference between Syracuse and the guys that they lost? The guys that they lost, Malik Brown and Quadir Copeland, are in the tournament. Where Syracuse, watching the tournament. With a record of 13-18 going into the ACC tournament, they were able to get a victory in the ACC tournament, though, end the season with 14 wins. Oregon and Arizona. I told you Arizona's right for a loss, so I can't trust them past the round of 64 into the round of 32. So I'm going to go with the Oregon Ducks, and we're going to be quacking our way to the Sweet 16.
You should be a Duck Dynasty, buddy. That was pretty good, that Duck call.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I can also do Donald Duck. So, and then VCU and Wisconsin. I told you when I pick against Wisconsin, they make me pay. I'm not going to make that mistake this time around. I'm going to go with the Wisconsin Badgers. Honey Badger don't quit. And then we got the St. Mary's team going up against Alabama. And as much as I want to pick St. Mary's, I think Bama's just too much. So once again, Ross and I find our way. And we, again, have not seen each other's brackets. You see them as we see them, but we have the same four moving forward here. And speaking of moving forward in the drive, proudly presented by Great Lakes Honda City on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday for sales and service. We are driving right to the Midwest, and that's going to be the Houston bracket, the third number one seed. And Ross is going to tell us who's making it out of the round of 64, and then he'll bring us into his Sweet 16 from the Midwest. Take it away, buddy.
All right. We both have been very high on Houston for a while now.
Yes.
And we've been disappointed a couple of times. They make a run, and then they get knocked off. They've been a number one seed for a couple of different recent tournaments here where they have high hopes to go all the way, go to the Final Four, go to the national championship game, and they fall short of that. But they've had a heck of regular seasons these last few years, and I still think they deserve their spot as the number one seed. And I think this is the year. I think Houston probably puts it together with enough tournament experience, and I'm really expecting Houston to make a run that's going to get them at least close to the Final Four. If not, I'd be disappointed if they fail to do that again. So I think Houston easily wins their number one seed match against 16 seed. So I'll go with Houston there. As the president would say, bigly. I would say they win bigly there. And then 8 versus 9 matchup. Gonzaga, this is kind of low on their seeded because they didn't have a great year, but they find a way to always win their conference tournament. It's either them or St. Mary's, as you said, the two main juggernauts in that conference. They were 25-8, but they only got an 8 seed against Georgia Bulldogs, a 9 seed out of the SEC, coming from a higher ranked conference. Georgia is, but Gonzaga, I've always had faith in Mark Few. He's been doing this since like 1999 as the coach of Gonzaga, getting into the tournament, making runs, go to the Elite Eight, Sweet 16 when no one had heard of Gonzaga, besides when John Stockton played there 40 years ago with the short shorts. And then they've gotten the national title game, Final Four, but they've never been able to get over the hump. And they finished just short. But they've made amazing runs in this tournament. So even though this has been an up and down season for Gonzaga, I think Gonzaga finds a way to at least win this one game over Georgia. They're better than them in an 8-9 match. I'll go with Gonzaga, and they'll take on Houston in round 2. In the 5 or 12 seed, again, I always look out for 12 seeds over a 5 seed. But here, Clemson versus McNeese State, I have to go with Clemson here. I think Clemson has faced better competition in the ACC throughout the year. Plus, I think I was reading right before this that the coach, their head coach, the McNeese, they're losing their coach pretty much as soon as this tournament's over, which could be after this game. He's already accepted another head coaching job. So you don't know how much of a distraction that will be for the coach and the players and the staff. That's going to be a little bit weird and awkward. But in the end, I'm going to have to go with Clemson. As much as it would be fun to see a 12 over a 5 seed upset special, go with Clemson there. Then with the, 4 versus 13 match of Purdue, I'll go with Purdue over High Point. High Point, again, another school I never really have heard of, but I've seen pictures online recently that it's supposedly a beautiful campus, and they had a heck of a season, 29-5. Not coming from a major conference. Purdue is always a heck of a team. They seem to always have a bunch of talent, but they fall short and kind of they don't perform their best in the tournament. We've seen that where they get knocked off early on. I think they were the other team that knocked off with a 1 seed versus a 16 seed, and they've been knocked off a few different times when they look like surefire bets to go to the Final Four. So they've underperformed in this tournament in recent years, which has been disappointed. But I think Purdue Boilermakers coming out of the Big Ten, they're good enough and should be able to beat High Point here. So I'm going to go with Purdue here, and they will move on to take on Clemson in round 2. And then in the 6 versus 11 matchup, now it's Xavier versus Illinois. I'll go with Illinois, the Fighting Illini. Xavier, they had the nice win over Texas last night. They did get a tournament win there. They can also be a dangerous team this tournament. In recent years, they've done that. They've pulled off some upsets. They've made runs. But I think the Fighting Illini coming out of the Big Ten, they're poised to at least get a win in this tournament. And again, I just think Big Ten is one of those conferences that I usually side with the Big Ten when they're in the tournament because they play such a physical brand of basketball all year long and into the conference tournament that it gets them ready for these single elimination must-win games in the March Madness tournament. So I'll go with Illinois there. Then in the 3 versus 14 matchup, Kentucky versus Troy. I'm going to have to go with Kentucky here. Troy, would be great to see a massive upset and to see kind of the embarrassment if Kentucky would lose to a small school like that. I think a lot of the Kentucky boosters and people of the SEC who got so many teams to get into the tournament, which was very controversial, how so many teams got into the March Madness tournament coming out of the SEC, and they get a lot of preferential treatment, it looks like. I think a lot of people would be going nuts if Kentucky lost this game, but I can't see that happening. Kentucky finds a way to beat Troy, I think, pretty handily there, so they'll take on Illinois in round 2. Then at the bottom of the bracket, we have 7 versus 10 seed UCLA versus Utah State. I'll go with the Bruins of UCLA. UCLA, they've been a major team in this tournament for years and years, all the way back to the John Wooden years. And I think UCLA has too much firepower. They'll knock off Utah State pretty easily. Then on the bottom of the bracket, Tennessee has had a heck of a season, been number 1 ranked a couple of times this year. They will take on Warford. Warford was only 19-15 this year, barely over 500 from a small conference. Tennessee coming out of the SEC, I think they're actually one of the schools like Alabama out of the SEC, not just football schools anymore. They've proven themselves that they're good at hoops as well. I think Tennessee had an argument to be a 1 seed in this tournament, especially early in the year. But Tennessee, I think, easily wins this, and they will take on the Bruins in round number 2.
And with that being said, going to that round of 32, who will make it to the Sweet 16 of your matchups?
All right, I'm going to have, as much as I love Gonzaga, and they go on runs, and a lot of times when I start to think that they're more instead of the underdog Cinderella team and the favorites, that's when they lose and they underperform. Here, not much is expected of them, so I think they'll find a way to beat Georgia, but I think against Houston is better. I think they have more firepower, so as long as they've learned from the mistakes of their recent past where they've fallen short in this tournament, I think Houston's going to knock off Gonzaga pretty easily. I think Gonzaga keeps it close for a while, but in the second half, Houston pulls away, gets to the Sweet 16. Clemson versus Purdue. And I don't know if it's much of an upset, but I'd say it's a little bit of an interesting matchup here. I'm going to go with Purdue over Clemson, though, because Clemson, as good as I think they are, I think Purdue, and I know it's a big caveat because they underperformed year after year in this tournament. I think they've learned from their mistakes, and I think they've dealt with all the media scrutiny of why can't you get these big wins in the tournament. I think they find a way to win their first round matchup and then win Clemson in round 2 to get to the Sweet 16 to take on Houston, which I think should be a heck of a matchup in the round of 16. Then on the bottom of the bracket, I'll go with Kentucky to knock off Illinois. I think Kentucky has too much firepower there. Illinois will play physical basketball. They'll be knocking those guys around, and they'll make it close. But I think Kentucky wins by 3 or 4 points to get to the Sweet 16. And then UCLA versus Tennessee. I'd love to see UCLA give us a scare to Tennessee. I think they will to a degree, but I think in the end, Tennessee has too much talent, and the Volunteers from Tennessee will knock the UCLA Bruins off, and they will take on Kentucky in the round of 16.
That coming from Ross Turetsky here in The Drive, driving you through the entire NCAA tournament for men's Division I basketball here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, proudly presented by Great Lakes Honda City, also our exclusive studio partner, and we will be with you all the way. We've done it for over a decade, Ross and I. D for Dan, R for Ross in The Drive. So that's Ross, Sweet 16, Midwest, Houston, Purdue, Kentucky, and Tennessee are coming out of that bracket for him. As we clear it up, I'll let you know where my thoughts are in the Midwest. So, with that being said, hopping right into my bracket, Houston. A couple years ago, I wrote on a piece of paper, just like Sonny Weaver Jr., I wrote my whatever, no matter what. Well, I wrote
Just
it's
like draft
yeah.
day, buddy. The late great Chadwick Boseman played Vontae Mack. I just watched that the other day when I was running on the treadmill, and still holds up. 11 years later, came out in 2014. If you haven't watched it, it's on Peacock for free. If you have that subscription, watch Draft Day. It's a heck of a movie with Kevin Costner. And I remember that fondly. Vontae Mack, no matter what, even when everyone's told to get the quarterback.
Yeah, Vontae Mack, no matter what. And in that movie, the Sonny Weaver Jr. is the general manager of the Cleveland Browns, and he calls up Jacksonville and takes advantage of them. And I feel like that holds true all these years later. So when we look at what's going on with the Midwest, I'm going with Houston. As I said a couple years ago, Houston, no matter what. Well, they almost did it back then when I had that. I'm picking Houston in this one. I'm also going with the Zags, them Bulldogs. I don't like, this is the Bulldogs versus the Bulldogs. The Gonzaga Bulldogs versus the Georgia Bulldogs. I'm going with the Zags. It's been a long time since they've been an 8 seed. They're typically higher than that. I don't like that this matchup is in the next round, that Houston and Gonzaga are playing each other. We'll talk about it in a minute. McNeese State, man, my guy Quadir Copeland, I'd love to see him get a victory. How many people thought when he left Syracuse, went in the transfer portal, went to McNeese State, that he was going to be playing in the tournament, and Syracuse wasn't? Shout out to McNeese and that entire team. This is a tough one for me to pick, though, because the Clemson Tigers, without a bunch of their guys, including Joe Girard III, bunch of guys that they had on this team that were really, really good, aren't there anymore. Yet Brad Brownell, the longest tenured coach in the ACC, he's still back in the tournament. I'm going with the Clemson Tigers, but I love this matchup. And then Purdue and High Point. High Point has 29 wins this season. They're one shy of getting their 30th victory. Here's the thing. They have not played a single ranked team this entire season. However, they are on I'm looking at this right now. They're on a, holy mother. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 game winning streak after losing to Longwood 82-80. Could they do it? Could the High Point Panthers beat Purdue? We know that Purdue is one of the 16 seeds that has lost it. Well, can this happen? I think Purdue is going to squeak by, but I think this game is going to make some of y'all nervous. The Boilermakers, hey, they might go a little bit cold before they go a little bit hot. Then Panthers are going to claw their way. Illinois up against Xavier.
Dan, I just want to quickly say the Joker in me, I would kind of want chaos and to watch the brackets burn a little bit.
Yeah.
So in my sick mind, even though I picked Purdue to win that game, I kind of would like to see High Point pull off that upset just to watch anarchy in this tournament. I think would be hilarious.
Yeah, and I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Xavier played their way into this tournament, and Xavier is going to play their way to the next round, defeating Illinois. You want to keep treating the Big East like they ain't nothing? Well, fine. They're going to keep proving themselves. Give the ACC and the Big East less than you give the Big Ten and the SEC, and they show you year in and year out that they can do more with less. I'm going with Xavier to move forward here. They are a dangerous team in this bracket. I said it once, I'll say it again. I'm going with Kentucky. Troy not going to make it through this one, in my opinion. Kentucky's going to make it forward in the tournament in their first year without John Calipari in a long time. And then we have UCLA and Utah State. Well, the committee loves the Mountain West last year and this year. You know who I love in this one? I love Utah State to defeat UCLA and move forward and face off against the Volunteers of Tennessee. And here's my question. Why is Tennessee upping their prices to football games in order to give money to their players when they're known as the Volunteers? Are you a volunteer organization? Aren't you non-for-profit? Well, this non-for-profit organization is going to move forward to face off against the Aggies of Utah State. And then from here, we're going to see Houston. It's going to break my heart a little bit, but I like Kelvin Sampson and I like Mark Few. Either one of these teams wins, I'm happy. Either one of teams loses, I feel bad. Clemson is going to knock off Purdue because I don't trust Purdue to get past High Point. And then we're going to have Xavier and Kentucky. And guess what, baby? Are you on 10 yet? Give me that Roman numeral 10. Give me that X. I'm going with Xavier to move forward and the Tennessee Volunteers. So first bracket where our Sweet 16 is different between Ross and I. And that will take us to our final bracket before we go back to the Sweet 16. And that final bracket brings us to our fourth number one seed, the Florida Go Gators. And the West goes to Ross first. Who you got for me, buddy?
All right, I'll go with the Florida Gators. They're 30-4 this year, and they went on a heck of a run all the way through the SEC championship in the tournament. In their conference tournament, they one of the games they just scored an insane amount of points. They just have a lot of firepower. They will easily handle Norfolk State to get to round number two. Then the 8 versus 9 matchup. This one's an interesting one. You got UConn, who's won back-to-back national championships with Coach Hurley, who's very cocky and brash. A lot of people he rubs the wrong way, but he knows that he usually has a heck of a team and he's a great coach. A couple years ago, he turned down the job with the Lakers, which is probably the best because I think his brand of coaching, where he's very in the players' faces, works much better in college than it does in the NBA, where LeBron James or Luka or those guys in the Lakers probably would laugh him off and say, what the heck do you know? But in the college game, he does great things. This year, they had some struggles. Of course, they've had so much success. They've had a lot of players leave to go to the NBA draft, to go one and done. And so they've had to, kind of rebuild and still be a good team at the same time. And they still had a good record overall. They were 23-10. They're not like they fell off the face of the earth. But they struggled. They lost to St. John's with Patino St. John's. They beat them up a couple of times this year in the Big East. So I think Coach Hurley, definitely is another, just like Tom Izzo, is a tough coach to beat in the March Madness in this tournament, a single elimination tournament. He will get his players immaculately ready to play. They will. I'm sure the practices are vigorous. They're intense, and he will have them hit it on all cylinders. But they've had some struggles with some of the talent they've lost this year going to the NBA draft, which is what's to be expected. Is there any way UConn's going to make it 3 straight national titles? I think that's going to be a tall task for UConn here. They used to be a top seed and always going undefeated and blowing out the field of 64 in this tournament. This is not going to be the case here. But I think they find a way to knock off the Oklahoma Sooners in a close basketball game. But I think they find a way to beat them to get to round 2 to take on the Florida Gators, which should be a good matchup. Then in the 5 versus 12 seed, this is my last chance. I can pick a 12 seed over a 5 seed, which seems to happen every year. I just don't like the matchup to pick them here at the 12 seed. I can't pick Colorado State over Memphis. I just think Memphis is the better team, the Memphis Tigers. So as much as I'll probably get this wrong because a lot of 12 seeds always find a way, at least one, to knock off a 5 seed. That seems to be the matchup that happens. I just don't. I can't pick Colorado State in this matchup. I like Memphis better, so I'm going to go with Memphis here. And I'll have Memphis taking on Maryland in round 2 because I'm going to go with Maryland to knock off Grand Canyon. 4 versus 13 matchup. I know Grand Canyon, they can be a dangerous team in this tournament, but in the end, I'm just going to go with Maryland. I think that they're going to be too much to handle. And again, as much as maybe SEC and Big Ten, they do probably get too much preferential treatment, too many teams in the tournament over some of these smaller schools. But again, I think that their kind of basketball gets them ready to play. They play out a lot of highly ranked teams throughout the year, so you got to give credit where credit's due. I think Maryland will find a way to beat Grand Canyon, take out Memphis in round 2. Then in a 6 versus 11 matchup, Drake, will he continue the rivalry with Kendrick Lamar, like they had the Super Bowl halftime show and all his trash talking? The beef seems to continue, but I think in the end, Drake will lose the beef once again because I know there's some fighting words. I think Missouri is going to be too much for them to handle in the Show Me State. Missouri will knock off Drake here. I think Drake 30-3, very impressive. I think they'll keep it close for a while, and I think it will be that this game definitely is right for an upset. I would not be shocked if Drake wins, but I think Missouri has a little too much talent here. I think Missouri wins by 3 or 4 points, gets to round 2. Then 3 versus 14 matchup. I'll go with Texas Tech. I know you see Patrick Mahomes, the former Texas Tech Red Raider, the star quarterback of the Chiefs, who went to Texas Tech. He comes to a lot of these games, cheer on his team. I think Texas Tech is been a solid team all year long, and I think they have enough firepower to get past round 1. Don't know how far they can go this tournament, but I think they have enough to win this game, and I think Texas Tech will win and get to play Missouri. Then on the bottom of the bracket, 7 versus 10 matchup, Kansas has struggled a lot this year. Bill Self's Kansas team has had a lot of up and down games this year, and I think they're ripe for an upset. And I'm going, we like to joke, we call them Arkansas instead of Arkansas. John Calipari has left Kentucky to go to Arkansas as the 10 seed. They're 20 and 13 this year, Arkansas, and I think Arkansas and Calipari and some. Well, I know he's you know always like him with some of the scandals he's gotten and got wins taken away, and he's rubbed you the wrong way, Dan. I know that a few times, especially with this tournament and the scandals he's got into. And I know he's brash and cocky, but in John Calipari, we trust in the NCAA tournament. He's always ready in March Madness, get his teams ready, to, prepared to pull off upsets. Arkansas knocks off the regular Kansas in the all-Kansas matchup. Arkansas wins to get to round 2, and they will take on my favorite team in this tournament as a kid from Brooklyn, New York, St. John's University. I think the campus is actually in Queens, New York, by where the New York Mets play. But I think St. John's, Rick Pitino, he's got that magic. He came back to St. John's last year, up and down season. Year 2, they've been flying high all year, 30-4 this year. I really think they should have been a number 1 seed, St. John's, in this tournament.
Agreed.
They crushed all their opponents to win the Big East Conference tournament at Madison Square Garden in New York City last weekend. And they will take on Omaha, the 15 seed. They will destroy Omaha. They'll be eating some Omaha steaks after this game because Rick Pitino's St. John's team, they are an amazing team this year. And I really think they're going to make a long run. And I believe they should have been a 1 seed, and they'll have a little chip on their shoulder because they should have been a 1 seed. I think St. John's easily beats Omaha, and they'll take on Calipari. You'll get another classic John Calipari versus Rick Pitino matchup in round 2 with Arkansas versus St. John's.
Yeah, and there are a lot of things I got to say. Bring me into the Sweet 16.
All right, Sweet 16. This one is going to be a great one to watch. Florida, an amazing top-tier team all year long, versus UConn, win back-to-back national titles. Coach Hurley, as cocky as ever, but this team is kind of maybe, I don't know if his cockiness has gone away, but he maybe has been humbled a little bit because of their struggles this year. I think, again, he's going to get his team ready to play as always, and he's going to make this a hell of a fight. But in the end, I think the Florida Gators are just a teeny tiny bit better. I'm going to go with Florida in a close game, 3 or 4 points to knock off UConn and dethrone the champs. Florida goes to the Sweet 16. Then I have Memphis versus Maryland. I'll go with the Memphis Tigers to get past Maryland to go to the round of 16 to take on Florida. Then Texas Tech I have over Missouri. They will go to the Sweet 16. And then in that thrilling matchup of coaching Titans in the game of collegiate basketball, have played many times against each other in the tournament, I'm going to go with St. John's. Pitino over Calipari. St. John's, way too much firepower. They knock off Arkansas, and they get to the round of 16 to take on Texas Tech.
Awesome. And so Texas Tech coming out of here. Let's put some T-Tech on the board for Ross. So that's his Sweet 16 coming out of the West. Florida, Memphis, Texas Tech, and St. John's Red Storm. And so now we head to my picks in the West, and we will start at the top of the bracket as we always do. And give me 1 second here as this is going to write all over the screen because why would it work consistently? So as we get set here for it's like screw your picks, Dan. And so as we make these picks here, of course, we are inside of the Drive. The Drive, proudly presented by Great Lakes Honda City. Great Lakes Honda City, also our exclusive studio partner, bringing you through the entire men's Division I NCAA tournament every single year with Ross and I. The D in Drive for Dan, the R in Drive for Ross, and right next to each other, as we've been for many, many years as brothers. My first one coming out of here, go Gators, Papa Joe will be happy, and so will Brendan. Going with the Gators coming out of this. UConn, how about like an Elite 8 matchup in the round of 32? I'm going with the Gators and the Huskies. The Huskies, they've lost throughout this season. They did not play for a Big East championship, and they've had some struggles here, folks. Something to watch. The Memphis Tigers, I spoke with my guy, Penny Hardaway. Been talking with him for many years, all the way back to COVID 2020 time. And Penny and his team putting that work in the American Athletic, which deserves more respect. The UABs and other teams, Memphis representing the American, they're going to represent it well. And between Grand Canyon and Maryland, I'm going to go with Maryland, but I think Maryland is a weak winner in this one, but I will go with them to get out of that first round matchup. Then we have Missouri and Drake. So, it makes me think about, Drake, that was the Soldier Boy beef. And then you got the Kendrick Lamar beef, the reincarnated, I'm a stargazer, A lot of good stuff coming up here. Will Drake win or will he lose twice? I could see the memes already. Man, Drake Drake lost 2 in a row. He lost to Kendrick Lamar and then he lost to Missouri. I'm going to go with Missouri to get this victory. Drake, I like your music, man. I don't know what's going on. Texas
He can't catch a break. He just keeps losing.
I know. I'm going to go with Texas Tech to win over UNC, Wilmington, Missouri, and Texas Tech. One of the only teams of Texas to not be in the SEC. And then we'll go to Kansas and Arkansas, and I'm going with Arkansas here, and the first year of John Calipari at Arkansas to face off against Rick Pitino at St. John's. This is going to bring me back to the days of Kentucky versus Kansas. Some big time things coming up here with these two coaches. And then Florida and UConn, man, Dan Hurley's done a great job. It's hard to three-peat, and it's hard to do it against this Florida team. So I'm going to go with Flo Rida to move it forward here in this matchup. And then we got the Memphis Tigers in Maryland. Memphis, I feel too good about Penny. He told me this season, we talked about it, and I'm going to be sharing it today. He said, last season, I went into the portal, and I looked for talent, and we didn't win. They weren't together. This year, he looked for character with talent, and they won, and they did it well. Almost an entirely new team of transfers, and Memphis is going to make a run in this tournament. You heard it here first. And Missouri and Texas Tech, I don't feel good about anybody coming out of this part of the bracket. So I'm going to go with Texas Tech over Mizzou to get this victory. And then a team that I've had a lot to say about this year, the Red Storm. Baby girl, they're just getting warmed up. The Red Storm moves on in the West, which brings us to the Sweet 16. And as we go into the Sweet 16, I am going to now ask Ross to give me his picks as we fully go into the Sweet 16 here, Ross. Who are you taking in the Sweet 16? Give me all your Sweet 16 matchups here. So as we do that, I'm going to go ahead and bring the board up, and Ross is going to give us his Sweet 16 picks right here on the board. And we're going to put them all together. We're going to go back to the South. So okay. Who's coming out of your two matchups in the South?
All right, the Sweet 16 matchup. Of course, I have Auburn versus Michigan. I'm saying Auburn is going down in the Sweet 16. Michigan Wolverines, I have a lot of faith in them. Again, that big run all the way to the Big Ten Conference Championship in their conference tournament last week. Michigan knocks off the first number one seed of this tournament, goes bye-bye. Bye-bye, Auburn. Michigan is going to beat Auburn in a big upset to get to the Elite Eight. The other matchup in that South bracket, Sweet 16, it's another matchup of the big blue bloods in college basketball, Michigan State versus North Carolina. And I'm going to go with Tom Izzo. We trust in the March Madness in this tournament. Michigan State, Tom Izzo over North Carolina Tar Heels. And I'm going to go where it's going to be the Elite Eight, Michigan versus Michigan State, the Battle of Michigan, to go to the Final Four, to go to San Antonio.
And who is going to make it out of the South bracket to the Final Four?
This one's a tough one, but in the end, as much as I love Tom Izzo, and it's hard to bet against him to go to another trip to the Final Four, which he's made many times. He's only won, I think, the one national title in 2000. But they've gone to the Final Four a bunch in his career, his illustrious career. I'm going to go with Michigan Wolverines. I think Michigan's just a little bit better this year. They beat them in the conference tournament. I think Michigan, with all their firepower, coming in hot at the right time, they're streaking, as Will Ferrell said in Old School. We're going streaking. That's what Michigan Wolverines are doing. They're streaking all over this tournament. They will be cutting down the nets and go to San Antonio and beat their arch rivals in the battle of Michigan supremacy. Michigan goes to the Final Four.
Michigan going to the Final Four out of the South bracket. Bring us to the East in your Sweet 16 and who's making it out.
And I do want to say that I am proud that I'm not just going chalk with all number one seeds, because there are some I think it was Jay Williams and a few other alleged basketball experts where they go the easy route and they just go with all number one seeds. It's happened before, but it's very rare. So Michigan is a 5 seed going all the way to the Final Four. So I don't want to. Even if that would be the case, all number one seeds, I think that's boring to pick all number one seeds to go to the Final Four. So let's go with the East bracket. All right, Sweet 16 matchup: Duke versus Oregon. Again, if Cooper Flag and Duke are fully healthy, I'll go with Duke here. Duke is way better than Oregon Ducks. The Ducks will have their last quack, and Duke will go to the Elite Eight. And in that Elite Eight matchup,
yeah.
great duck call. I'm telling you, Duck Dynasty, give my buddy a call. Alabama, I'm going to have, with their firepower, too much for Wisconsin to handle. The Badgers go down. Alabama Crimson Tide again, not just the football school, but Nick Saban and all those great years. I know now it's not quite the same as Saban gone. Alabama will take on the Duke Blue Devils in the Elite Eight to go to the Final Four.
And who will be making it to the Final Four as the final team in the East?
I'll go with Duke. The Blue Devils we trust. Again, big caveat once again is health. But if they stay healthy, Duke has a lot of firepower. They're better than Alabama. And I think this is the year they finally get over the hump. I know Duke has had many great runs. But since Coach Krzyzewski's left, they've had some up and down runs, even with the one-and-done superstars they bring in. I think Duke puts it together, and they cut down the nets and go to the Final Four in San Antonio.
So coming out of the East, Ross has the Duke Blue Devils. So the Michigan Wolverines of the Big Ten out of the South bracket, the Duke Blue Devils out of the ACC in the East bracket, which brings us to the Midwest and what you have making it out of the Sweet 16 to the Elite Eight and the Final Four.
All right, Sweet 16 in the Midwest. I'll go with Houston. The Cougars, they put it all together. They knock off the Purdue Boilermakers to get to the Elite Eight, and they will take on Tennessee in the Elite Eight because I think Tennessee, Kentucky, big time matchup of SEC powerhouses. Tennessee is a little bit better than Kentucky this year, and I think it'll be a hell of a matchup. Probably be only about 3-4 point difference in this game. Tennessee and the Volunteers get it done over the Kentucky Wildcats. It'll be Houston and versus Tennessee to go to the Final Four.
And I think this almost happened in the recent past here of Houston and Tennessee. Who's coming out of the Midwest bracket?
The Cougars get it done. Houston, we trust. As you said, Vontae Mack no matter what. Houston, no matter what. Houston's going to knock off Tennessee in a thrilling Elite Eight matchup. They will be going to the Final Four. So right now I got Michigan, Duke, and Houston advancing to San Antonio.
And heading to San Antonio with them, the fourth team for Ross to pick is going to come from the West bracket. Who is going to make it out of your Sweet 16 to the Elite Eight and the Final Four?
All right, Sweet 16, Florida continues to roll after knocking off UConn in the second round. They knock off Memphis. Penny Hardaway give him a lot of credit. Big fan of his since back when I was a kid. They had those funny animated little Penny commercials from Nike. I always wanted the Penny Hardaway shoes. Besides, they just Air Jordans or that Allen Iversons as a kid. I was always asking for the Penny Hardaway shoes. Always a fan favorite of mine. It sucked when he started to get injured. It was never quite the same health-wise because when him and Shaq were together in Orlando, that was magic. And literally magic on the Orlando Magic, and they should have won many titles together. But Penny Hardaway doing a great job as a coach at Memphis. I think, though, Florida is going to knock off Memphis to go to the Elite Eight. And then lower in the bracket, I'll go with Texas Tech. Texas Tech, they already beat Missouri. Texas Tech is going to have to take out my St. John's team because St. John's is my hometown team who's stunk for years. St. John's is going to easily knock off Texas Tech. They're going to run them off the court. And it'll be St. John's versus the Florida Gators, 1 versus 2 matchup to go to the Final Four.
Yeah, and coming out of this West bracket is who?
All right, this is a matchup of Titans this season. And I know people will laugh because St. John's has been so bad for so long. Rick Pitino's team is believing in what he's selling, and he just has that magic to turn teams around. They will knock off the Florida Gators, another number 1 seed, going down. Auburn goes down. And another SEC number 1 seed, Florida goes down. St. John's, in a close matchup, probably within 5-point range, knocks off Florida Gators, and they will go to the Final Four and join their other squads in San Antonio.
Ross going with the St. John's Red Storm. So Michigan out of the South, Duke out of the East, Houston out of the Midwest, and St. John's out of the West to make it to the Final Four. As we clear the board, we remind you one more time that this is The Drive. Capital D and capital RD for Dan and capital R for Ross in The Drive, bringing you through the entire Men's Division I NCAA tournament every single season right here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. So we'll take a look at my South as well as my East, my Midwest, and my West, as we just did that with Ross, and let you know who I have coming out of my Sweet 16. So, Sweet 16 matchups, Auburn and Michigan, North Carolina and Michigan State. Man, you see North Carolina, Michigan State, and you start getting all nostalgic. So I'm going to go with the Auburn Tigers to do this. I'm a little leery because number one overall seeds. I don't go chalk on that stuff. I'm a little leery of that, but I think they can beat Michigan. I'm going to go with Auburn to get the victory. And as much as I want to pick North Carolina, I'm not going to bet against Tom Izzo. The Big Ten will get in 9 teams or 8 teams this year. They got in 8. And what happened last year? They get more than half of their conference in. The only one left alive, Michigan State. Why? Because you can make Tom Izzo whatever seed you want to make him, whoever's on his team, and he's going to try and provide you at least one victory. Well, Tom Izzo is so good, and I'm very excited to see what they're going to do here as Izzo's got the team rocking and rolling. If you wanted more 16 seeds to knock off 1 seeds, they should have made the Spartans 16 seeds over the years. And coming out of the South bracket, I'm just tired of picking Auburn, man. I just can't do it anymore. It's got to be Michigan State. Michigan State moving forward here in this bracket to go to the Final Four, and they as the 2 seed. Tom Izzo, I trust in Tom. Hashtag trust in Tom. I'm going with Izzo to get this one here. In my East bracket, I'm going with the Duke Blue Devils because I've been telling you throughout this season that I think Duke is one of 2 teams that I feel really good about winning the whole thing. Before I made this bracket, weeks before, or at least over a week ago, I said Duke and blank, and I'll get to that blank in a minute here. Those are the teams I'm eyeing to win this NCAA tournament in San Antonio for 2024-25. Duke over Oregon, and then Wisconsin and Alabama. I told you when I pick Wisconsin, sometimes it works. When I don't pick them, they go to the Sweet 16. So this year I picked them to the Sweet 16, but I don't think they're going to go any farther. Give me Fly Slamma Jamma Bama, but I don't care who the Blue Devils play. I'm going with Duke to move forward here into the Final Four to get that victory and move into the nation's Final 4 teams of 360 plus in Division I men's basketball. In the Mountain West, we have Houston and Clemson in my bracket. And Houston, they ain't going to have no problems. They're going to get that victory. And I'm going to have Tennessee moving on over Xavier. I got Xavier winning a couple games, and then that run is going to stop after their win over Kentucky. And then Houston and Tennessee. Kelvin Sampson, he's been good to me. I love talking with him. Hope I get to do it again very soon. I'm going with the Cougars to get the victory. I've spoken with Tennessee as well, and I respect them. Going with Houston. Florida making it past UConn, and Memphis making it past Maryland, bringing me to Florida and Memphis. This is a really hard one for me to choose because I think Penny Hardaway and his team are going to do a good job, but after getting a couple wins, I think it's going to Florida, and so I'm going to have Florida coming out of the top part of the West bracket. To the Gators, go Gators, and Papa Joe, I know you're happy with that. Texas Tech up against St. John's. You could have Texas Tech, Arkansas, and Missouri play St. John's at the same time, and I'm still picking St. John's. So St. John's getting the victory here. I felt good about them during this season. And what did I tell you all? I said, when Rick Pitino was fired, I said, he ain't done coaching. Just wait. He'll be back. I won't be surprised if he comes back. And then what did he do? He came back, and he went to Iona. And people said, why the hell would he go to Iona? I said, he's biding his time. Trust me, he's waiting. And once he feels like it's long enough and people have gotten over whatever's happened, he will find his way to another team. And if you are surprised that he's back in the Big East, well, then you don't know Rick Pitino. Al Pacino himself in basketball form is 30-4 this season after being 20-13 last season in his first season with the St. John's Red Storm. And I am going with the St. John's Red Storm to knock off the Florida Gators. And St. John's goes to the Final Four, which gives me a Final Four of Michigan State, Duke, Houston, and St. John's. 2 that make sense to you, right? Michigan, Duke, Houston, even though they're a 1 seed, some people still don't respect them. They were one of the few teams respected from the American Athletic, and then they joined the Big 12 last year, and they continue to have that respect. St. John's, man, it's been a long time, but Rick Pitino's got you back, baby. So that brings us up to the Final Four, and Ross will give his, I will give mine, and so let's do that as we get down to the brass tacks of it. I'm going to put Ross on one side here, And now we're going to join each other on the screen as you will see the side by side of Ross and I as we go through our Final Four, our national championship game, and the score of that game. Sir, who is going to win in your first Final Four matchup?
All right, and I want to also give credit. Never mind how amazing the season's been for Rick Pitino. Another fun fact: this was their first Big East championship since 2000, so 25 years, a quarter of a century. I was 14 years old, or almost 14, when they last won it, and now I'm almost a middle-aged man. So it's been a while. So St. John's, it's been fun as a kid from New York to finally see them rise from the ashes and be a heck of a program once again, like they were back in the day with Lou Carnesecca, the late great Lou Carnesecca. Years and years of great basketball, and then it fell down to the abyss for years and years. Rick Pitino's brought them back. Hopefully, when Rick Pitino eventually leaves the program, it's better than where he left, where he found it, and they can continue this dominance for years to come with the other big boys of college basketball. I hope it doesn't fall off the cliff when Rick Pitino eventually does leave coaching, because he is getting older, but he's done a hell of a job. So I can give a lot of credit to Rick Pitino and St. John's. So for my Final Four, the drum roll, St. John's knocks off Michigan. So St. John's will knock off Michigan to go to the national championship game. I think this is going to be a heck of a matchup. I think they'll find a way to win it. Close matchup. St. John's wins that. And my other semifinal, I'll go with Duke over Houston. As much as I'd love to see Houston win it and go all the way, Duke and Cooper Flag and all the powerhouse that they bring with them, the Blue Devils, they knock off Houston. So it'll be St. John's versus Duke in the national championship game.
So with Ross, St. John's, and Duke, what did I tell you? I said, I've been saying now that Duke is the team that I believe has a really good shot of winning a national championship. And I told you in a minute, I would tell you the other team that I think has a really good chance. I've called them my dark horse, even though they're a 2 seed. I've called them a dark horse, even though I'm not surprised they won the Big East tournament. They should have been a 1 seed. I agree with Ross. And if you don't know, now you know. St. John's is the other team that I have been so high on going into this tournament before the bracket, well before the bracket was released, that wherever they were, whatever seed they are, that Rick Pitino can get this team to a national championship. So Ross and I have the same championship game. Will we have the same champion? And will we have a similar score? Ross, who is winning the 2024-25 Men's Division I NCAA tournament? And what's the score?
St. John's, we trust. St. John's, no matter what, is what I'm going with this year. For better or for worse, I hope they don't get upset early. St. John's and Rick Pitino, they come full turnaround in their just second year of him being the head coach of this program. They go from nothing to mediocre all the way to national champions and come down the nets in San Antonio. St. John's knocks off Duke. My score is 89-82. Close single-digit game. They win by 7 over the Duke Blue Devils. St. John's wins the 2025 NCAA National Championship. And I hope my prediction is right, and the city of New York throws a big parade for Rick Pitino and St. John's. And Rick Pitino proves once again why he's one of the greatest coaches, especially in college basketball, that we've ever seen. And very lucky to witness all the great success he's had for many different programs for many years and decades of excellence.
I want to speak in a language that Rick Pitino understands. Rick Pitino, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to go through this tournament. I need you to feel comfortable. I need you to be healthy. I need you to be locked in. Slick your hair back and leave all the haters behind you like your hair that you slick behind. There's nothing that's going to stop this team. I believe in you. I trust you. Do it for the family. I'm going with St. John's to win a national championship in Rick Pitino's second year back in the Big East after being with Louisville and Providence before that. I'm going with the St. John's Red Storm. My final score of this championship game against Duke, 85-79.
Oh, nice. So in the end, we picked a lot of our Final Four was similar, and our national championship game was exactly the same. And not even that far off in score. We did not get a chance to have a sneak peek at each other's brackets. So it's kind of cool how we ended up in the same place. It's happened before. Other years it hasn't. In the end, we're both going with St. John's. So that very interested to see how our minds thought similar, a little different, but similar. Yeah. And we ended up in the same place at the end of the day.
And I will say this, if for nothing else, Ross and I have a clean bracket right now. So
yes.
Let's put the brackets up.
I haven't crossed things out. It's not been burned. It's not been flushed down the toilet yet. But by midnight tonight, it all might be up in smoke. Might be like Cheech and Chong, up in smoke.
Put your bracket up. What we got here? Show everybody. You got your bracket with you?
I'll put it up one more time here. Yeah, this is the last time it will be a clean bracket, because I'm sure this will be a lot will be wrong. Hopefully not a lot, but some of this will be wrong before the night is over.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I hope the only red on my bracket is the fact that there's a red box, but that those two teams are right. So
and that the Red Storm are going to be national champions when it's all said and done, hopefully.
That's right. The Red Storm bringing it to New York City, and very excited about this. Those brackets are official. I got a picture of Ross's, a picture of mine. We will put them on our social media. Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, X at CallDT, Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. And one more time, you got to take a look at it because it's just way too beautiful to not see it again.
It is beautiful, buddy. Thank you very much for having me. I gotta run to get my son from school because they're gonna call me like, "Where the heck are you?" So I gotta run to do that. I love doing this. I hope we can do this for many, many years to come. It's been a blast doing the drive with you, buddy. You are a brother to me, and I don't take this for granted. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. And one last time, Jamie, get to the chopper. Get down. It is not the tuba. It is that nature. Hasta la vista, baby. Enjoy March Madness from 12 noon all the way through midnight. Rest in peace, though, to Greg Gumbel. We will miss him. Yeah. His coverage with March Madness, that will be deeply missed. We missed him on Selection Sunday this past weekend. He had passed away recently. But this will be a great tournament. I love this tournament year after year. So hopefully you have a great day, especially these first 2 days. Enjoy it from sun up, sun down, till midnight or later. We get to watch college basketball all day and night. Even if our wives yell at us, stop watching the game, we get to enjoy it. And it's been a blast, buddy. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, from the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. Just remember, Rick, that you're going to do us a favor. So with that being said, we'll talk with you soon. And that coming from Ross Turetsky, as we will take a step aside in this wonderful edition of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, The Drive, one of the products of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, proudly presented by our exclusive studio partner, Great Lakes Honda City, which just means I get to say their name a little bit more. So find them on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. We'll take a step aside for our final fast break. We'll be back after this. From the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, we just gave you our brackets. Get yours in the bracket challenge. Do it right now. Tap your screen, folks. Do not waste a minute. Tap the screen right now with the QR code and get yourself to our bracket challenge. I would love for you to join us there in the Wake Up Call bracket challenge. It is available to you right now. All you have to do is tap the screen to that QR code. I'll leave it up here for a second. Tap it. And of course, you can follow our social media where we have the direct link if you don't want to use the QR code or if you don't know how to use the QR code. Totally fine. We gave you multiple opportunities to make it easy. Keep it simple. We'll be back after this from the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. This is Wake Up Call, and you are amazing. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you. Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
All right, you need to come out here and get yourself the Brooklyn Pickle. I was talking about this with one of my buddies. I was like, yo, there's no better sandwich in the state of New York than the Brooklyn Pickle. And now that I found out that they're going down to North Carolina, we are taking over your taste buds everywhere you are, wherever you're going to be. You need to get yourself out to the Brooklyn Pickle. Pinehurst, you just realized that you found yourself the best sandwich shop that you're ever going to have. This is a glorious moment. It's a blessing to your community. You're welcome. Brooklyn in the house, baby. Go over to the Brooklyn Pickle. You already know what it is.
You heard the man. Head to Brooklyn Pickle Pinehurst on 1788 Old Morgantown Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there, and of course you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100, and also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
GG Cards and Breaks. Like, comment, subscribe.
GG Cards and Breaks coming to you on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York is your one-stop sports card and trading card shop. Find your way over to GG Cards and Breaks and you will find basketball, football, baseball, soccer, hockey, and so much more, including Disney Lorcana, Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and Pokemon cards right there on site at 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York, where you get to be a big kid every single week. You could find them Tuesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Sundays from 10 to 5. Get over to GG Cards and Breaks. Let them know that Wake Up Call sent you to what I consider the best sports card and trading card shop that I have ever found. And I am a collector. And I've been to many, many places. But I've never met people like Josh and Anthony. I've never been around such a wonderful, welcoming, and good community. And I don't know if there's anybody that works harder. So I appreciate them for a lot of reasons. Head off to GG Cards and Breaks today. Let them know the DT sent you, and I appreciate it. With that being said, inside of the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, bringing you through the bracket. And, of course, in hour number one, speaking with Papa Joe in the baseball world and a little bit about the tournament. And then speaking with Ross, a little bit about baseball and into the NCAA tournament. It's kind of funny how that all worked out and they bookended each other. But that's how great God is. A lot of things happen on this show that I can't take credit for because God is simply awesome. YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com, Monday through Friday, worldwide, wherever you are, you're with us. If you want to be, and I appreciate those that do, watch and listen. And of course, we have our playbacks on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube. All you got to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora or one word, Wake Up Call DT. Subscribe and follow. It is free. And of course, many thanks to the Brooklyn Pickle in Southern Pines on 1788 Old Morganton Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina. From New York to North Carolina, traveling down to Southern Pines, you will find the Brooklyn Pickle right down the road, less than 10 minutes from Pinehurst Golf Courses. Let them know the DT sent you. North Carolina, you just found your favorite sandwich. And of course, you could visit our team of partners in Central and Upstate New York at Great Lakes Honda City, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, GG Cards and Breaks, Servomation, Ma and Pa's, the snack capital of the world, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Avicoli's, Mother's Cupboard, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Pizza Man, Brian's Landing, and we are the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Lemoyne College Dolphins. It's Fins Up every single month on Wake Up Call. Find the Dolphins Wednesday during Dolphin Time at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. With student athletes, coaches, administration, future Dolphins, and alumni, you get coverage of the Dolphins that they haven't had anywhere else, and it's not even close. Find the Dolphins on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find our Lemoyne playlist. You could also find the Dolphins by going to wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com and fins up. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Bobcats every single month with student athletes, coaches, and administration. We just got to make history with going on site, on location, traveling with the team, being on the sidelines, and having a truly incredible experience at the USCAA National Tournament in Buffalo, New York. I cannot thank Mary Hawkins, Brooke Parro, and everyone at Bryan and Stratton College of Syracuse in leadership, as well as Clay Gagan Sherman, Coach X, Nolan Cass, and the entire student-athlete base and everyone who helps out. And many, many thanks to Dylan and to everybody that is connected to Bryan and Stratton and truly made a dream come true for me. So gave me something I never thought I would have. Thank you for that. You can find your Bobcats by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find our BSC Syracuse playlist. You'll also find the Bobcats by going to wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com and go Bobcats. The Binghamton University Bearcats are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Bearcats every Tuesday during Bearcat time with student athletes, coaches, and administration joining the show, as well as alumni to tell their story. The Bearcats are on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find our wonderful Binghamton Bearcats playlist. You also find Binghamton by going to wakeupcalldt.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to binghamtonbearcats.com and go Bearcats. I appreciate you for tuning in to this episode of The Drive inside of Wake Up Call, giving you our analysis of the NCAA tournament for men's Division I basketball. I'll be watching men's and women's. Our bracket challenge is up. You have just a few minutes. You have 20 minutes to get your bracket in, and so I will send that out to you one more time on social media. You have 20 minutes to get your bracket in, so please do that right now. Follow this QR code, tap it on your screen, and pick it up right now. Go to the camera on your screen, hover it over this QR code, and join the free Wake Up Call Bracket Challenge. You have 20 minutes to do it. I look forward to seeing you there. God bless, no stress, do your best. From the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, this is Wake Up Call, and you're amazing. Have a wonderful day, and enjoy the tournament.